Good morning, and thank you for the invitation. And I must just say that because I work in Parliament doesn't mean I have any insight into Brexit. In fact, I'll go as far as to say I probably know as little about the outcome of Brexit as the Prime Minister herself. So, on that, group of children playing in a pile of rubble. One of them picks up something similar, turns around to his friends, it explodes, kills him. Girl reaching for it, loses her arm, her eye, half her face. Child further out suffers severe penetrative shrapnel injuries. Fourth child unscathed by the blast, but all three suffer hearing loss and long-term psychological harm. We know two things. We know that blast inflicts a particular type of injury. We know that children's bodies are different from adults. So what we don't really know is that long-term impact of blast. This depressing little picture is starkly indicative of a far bigger issue. Mine clearance, counter-ID staff do a fantastic job. And without them, there would be far more victims. But no matter how good they are at their job, they're still going to be victims. Between 2014 and 18, Action on Armed Violence charted over 14,000 incidents of explosive violence globally. Events that killed or injured over 200,000 people, 150,000 of those civilians. 106 countries suffered explosive violence. In 2017, UK was in the top 10 of those, thanks to the Manchester bombing, which killed 22 and injured a further 800. The latest landmine monitor records that the last 2 years there have been more injuries, casualties from explosive violence than any time since they started publishing in 1999. So, with just under 60,000 deaths and 92,000 civilian casualties, suffering life-changing injuries, plus untold numbers of psychologically harmed victims, there is a significant strain on the people providing medical and psychosocial care. So there's an average of 18,500 new injuries, I'm talking civilian injuries here, every year. And each year, that figure just increases exponentially, because the last year's group didn't suddenly get well, they still need long-term support. And it's a figure that is just going to keep growing. Back in 2016, the all-party parliamentary group held an inquiry into victim assistance. And from that, we clearly saw that we needed better funding. We needed better communications between agencies. We needed better understanding, collection, and quality of data. And to blow my own trumpet here, I was delighted that the UK government were very welcoming of that report, and even Theresa May took time away from Brexit to write to congratulate us on that. So, you know, at a government level, victim assistance is quite high on their agenda. Well, I hope it's high on their agenda now, despite everything else going on. So the essence of our inquiry found that long-term support for victims was woefully inadequate, and it doesn't have to be. I'd originally created the Revive campaign as a publicity awareness-raising exercise alongside the inquiry. The response from our partners, from parliamentarians, from government, convinced me that it was worth actually turning Revive into a standalone, what we call a community interest company, a not-for-profit company. Revive standing for Reduce Explosive Violence, Increase Victim Empowerment. I didn't come up with that acronym, a PR company did, but it works. We have a coalition membership, including our 3 founding UK charities, Action on Armed Violence, Find a Better Way, and Emergency UK, and we're open to any other organisations who might want to join in. In the first instance, the organisation will run the secretariat for the all-party parliamentary group. We'll undertake the research and inquiries on behalf of that group, and we'll service the membership by being a coordinator for joint projects between the counter-ID, mine action, victim assistance communities, and that includes academia as well. I mean, King's College, we have one of your professors on our board. So, our vision then, and this is usual sort of position paper vision statement, is to see a world free of explosive threats, and for those who are victims to have appropriate physical and psychological support and the empowerment to rebuild their lives wherever they live. Our mission statement is to ensure politicians around the world have the information they need to develop appropriate and effective policy and legislation to reduce explosive violence and increase support for victims, and more importantly, have the political will to make that policy work. We have an ethics statement that we stole from Thomas Edison, which reads, "Non-violence leads to the highest ethics, which is the goal of all evolution. Until we stop harming all other living things, we are still savages." I rather like that. So, Revive, we're going to strive to achieve positive outcomes for victims of explosive conflict while respecting the autonomy of individual victims and the principles of beneficence and non-maleficence. Can't say that word. We should also seek to influence policymakers. That's at an international level. I know we're a UK all-party parliamentary group, but we also work quite a lot with the United Nations and with partners in other countries. In an open, honest, evidence-based, which I thought as academics you might like, and transparent manner. And we'll do this by being an effective advocate for reducing the level of explosive violence against innocent civilians, enabling and developing the capability of the APPG on explosive threats to address issues of explosive threats to civilian populations, ensuring effective collaboration and evidence-based activity amongst all those charitable, government, academia, private sectors organisations working in the explosive threats mitigation and related humanitarian activity space. And finally, becoming a global thought leader on explosive threat mitigation and victim assistance. So, to go back to my earlier story, as a child in Hong Kong, I pulled that out of the ground in the New Territories. If that had been live, I would have been one of those statistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions, comments on this
was obviously so thorough.
One question I had was, you mentioned that you want to, you don't want to restrict yourself in the UK, but also try and have an international impact. If you have, okay, obviously you need to work with United Nations or other groups to do this, but have you already planned out at all how this would work in practice? Will it be challenging to reach to these people?
Well, in essence, it's about using the politicians that we've got. I've spent 8 years building up quite a support group within the UK Parliament of quite prominent politicians. They all have a voice on the international stage. They visit other countries. I mean, we were supposed to be sending a group to Iraq in a couple of weeks' time, which UNMAS were going to help with the briefing for. Unfortunately, one of the things that Brexit has done is meant that that's been cancelled. So it's about using the champions that we've got to go to these countries and in closed-door sessions just say to our international partners, whether they be donor countries or impacted countries, this is a humanitarian issue, it's a non-partisan issue, we need to build that network. And, you know, we've been doing it for the past couple of years. It's very much sort of quiet influence, let's put it that way, and also working with policy level in countries as well.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Hi, so I'm Carlotta from the JCHD. So I just have a quick question. You said you have a specific focus on Angola, and as we know, the UK has been a large funder, and I was just curious if you could elaborate on that.
I wish I hadn't said that now. At the last meeting of the all-party parliamentary group, we were laying out sort of, our future strategy, and it was decided that we should focus on 2 or 3 particularly impacted countries, and Angola was decided as the one to look at for Africa. And what we will be doing is working with the all-party parliamentary group on Angola and any of the partners there. The first steps will always, it's like when we run the inquiries, the first thing to do is decide what the questions that we need to ask are, and then we'll ask them. So it's not going to be an immediate thing, but in the coming few months we'll start exploring that.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much again.